Welcome, everybody, to an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I'm Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of combat sports, and we got a lot of things to cover here today. We're going to have some great interviews for you later on in this show. We're going to talk to PFL analyst Ian Parker, one of our favorites on the show, going to be joining us to break down the brackets for the PFL 2025 tournaments. We finally got all those. We went through all the different divisions over the last month. Now, one big shot, we got the brackets. We know who's facing who. We're going to focus on three of them today for us and hit those mostly with Ian and then give him a little bit of taste of the other ones. Let him tell us what we think is going to happen with some of those. And then as the weeks go on here on the show, we'll break those down for you more and more with some great matchups for the PFL. But we'll talk to Ian today coming up later on in the show. After him, we're going to hook up with BKFC flyweight Justyn Martinez coming off his second first-round stoppage. Rough start to his BKFC career, but now has won 2 in a row in 2025. This year has been good to Justyn Martinez. Some great quick finishes for him. We'll talk about that fight that he just had out in Albuquerque and see what is next for him. Anybody in his sights, anybody that he wants to go, take out, maybe get some of those marks off his record. We'll see all that when we talk to him later on the show. We'll also go out to California and talk to Lights Out Bantamweight champ Arnold Jimenez, who is going to be defending that title once again in March. Here, the end of the month, March 22nd, we'll see him on Lights Out once again. Just defended it for the first time back in December 2024. Been trying to hook up with him for a while, so we'll get his opinion on his fight against Lewis and this fight coming up against his new opponent and what the future may hold for him. As all these guys have their sights set on big things coming down the way in 2025. And then we'll close it out by talking about some of the news around combat sports. We have a little MMA, a little boxing, lots of stuff to hit on. But first, here on the show, why don't we get right into some of these matchups that the PFL has released for the 2025 tournament season. Let's start off with the welterweights. April 3rd is when these guys will kick off. First fight card of the tournament season for the PFL. Of course, all these first round ones are going to be down in Orlando. There's a bunch of great matchups there. Let's start off with the one that I caught my eye right away. When we talked about these brackets, we talked about who might be guys that could be ones to win these divisions. Who are some of the favorites in it? And when you see that, when you get these bracket formats, a lot of times, whether it be, the NCAA tournament, whether it be, a fight tournament like this, they're going to try to keep maybe the top ones away from each other a little bit. Maybe save those for the end. Get the big shots for the, the card that we finale with all this. Not here with the PFL. A lot of these fights, it seemed like we're actually put together with some of the favorites are fading, where some of the favorites are fighting right out of the gates. Let's start off with Jason Jackson versus Andrei Koreshkov. Jackson, the ass-kicking machine, one of the best nicknames in all the PFL. 34-year-old Jamaican, 18-5, 9 by decision, 6 by KO. Likes to mix it up. At 8-2 record in Bellator, coming off a title loss last June. Now he is going to be fighting Koreshkov, 34-year-old Russian, 28-5. A lot of experience for this guy. 14 by KO, TKO, 10 by decision. He likes to stand and trade as well. 16-4 in Bellator. So these guys have been fighting for a long time in Bellator, almost been on a crash course, for it seems like forever. Koreshkov's coming off the loss to Umalatov last season. He's got wins over Lima, as Douglas Lima, the former champion, as is Jackson. He's got some great fights against Lyman Good, Benson Henderson. Jackson has some great fights over Lima, Daly, Neiman Gracie, Ben Henderson. So these guys have a wealth of experience against some of the best to ever come through Bellator, and now they're going to be facing each other in the first matchup of this tournament. The first round is crazy that they threw these guys together right away. Another one that's like that, the other guys that I would have put in that top 4, who would be the favorites in this division, and that's why we, made sure we kind of asterisked everything we said. Like, these are the guys I think could win it, depending on the matchups, because obviously 2 of these 4 are going to be right out of the tournament, right away, and that is Logan Storley versus Magomed Umalatov. Storley, 32-year-old from the U.S., 16-3, 9 by KO, TKO, 7 by decision. Wants to trade. He wants to stand on the feet. 10-2 in Bellator. Umalatov, the 32-year-old Russian, 8-1 in the PFL, 17-1 overall, 11 by KO, TKO. So again, 2 guys that are going to be trading fists and kicks and just mixing it up as much. There shouldn't be too much laying and praying in this fight. It's going to be a lot of action. Umalatov was unbeaten. He was 17-0, before losing to Musayev by the 3rd round TKO in November for the title. So both these guys would have been the top favorites for this division as well. I think whoever comes out of those 2 fights eventually is going to be meeting for the championship of that division. But there are other fights as well, so we have to give them their due as well. You have Burkamamov versus Zendel in that one, the 31-year-old Russian. versus the Macedonian. 17-2 for Berkamov. 10-1-1 for Zendel. A lot of submission wins for the Russian. A lot of, kind of mix up on the feet or the ground for the Macedonian. So this one will be very interesting to see who controls how this one goes as far as the style of fight we get. You also have Kikuri versus Bakar. The 29-year-old from Japan is 10-2-1 in his fight career, 7 by KO, TKO, 3 by decision. The Tunisian fighter is fighting at Greece, 9-2 overall, 8 by KO, TKO. So this should be one where these two guys are going to throw fists. They're going to try to knock each other out. They're going to try to finish each other off. But both of them don't have a ton of experience in the, the bigger realms of MMA. 2 fights for Kikuri in Bellator, none for Bashar. All of his fights have been in smaller promotions besides one fight on The Ultimate Fighter 32 back in 2024, which he lost. So, 2 lower-level guys, less experience, but could be dark horses the way things are matching up in this one. Then let's move on to bantamweight. That's the next week, April 11th, the 145-pound division. Again, a battle between 2 guys that you would have put as some of the best in this division. Magomedov versus Higo. Magomedov, the 33-year-old Russian, 20-4, 11 by submission, 6 by decision. He's going to want to take it to the mat. Higo, the 36-year-old Brazilian, 23-6, 13 wins by submission, 7 by decision. So this is going to be probably a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling, or you know what? Every now and then you get one of those, and all of a sudden both these guys try to stand and trade. But I still think you're going to get a lot of ground battles between these 2 guys. Magomedov lost 3 of his last 5 in Bellator, so he's coming in on a little bit of a bad streak, while Higo won his last 2 in Bellator, but the losses that Magomedov has are to Stotts and Patchy Mix, some of the tops in that division, so I still give him the advantage in that fight. You also have Kamidov versus Hadley in this one. Kamidov, the Tajikistani fighter, 27 years old, unbeaten, 16-0, 3 wins in Bellator, 3 different ways, so this guy is well-rounded. Hadley, the 28-year-old from England, 11-4, 5 by submission, 3 decision, 3 KO. So again, well-rounded. It's going to be anyone's guess how this fight ends up as far as on the feet, on the ground. Maybe see a little bit of both. Hadley's coming off losses in 3 of his last 4 fights, but all those were in the UFC and all by decision. So he's not getting dropped in some smaller promotion. This is a guy who's been, against some of the best in this division. It's going to be very interesting back and forth. You have the up-and-comer versus a guy who's, around the same age, but a little bit more of a veteran against top-level experienced opponents. It's going to be interesting to see how this one. I don't know if I could pick this one without seeing some more action between these 2 guys. I have to go do some more studying on that one. Then you have Clark versus Kasumov. Clark, the 29-year-old from Ireland. Kasumov, the 30-year-old from Russian. Both these guys have some great records. Clark, 10-0, unbeaten, 5 by submission, 4 decision, all with Bellator. Kasumov, 16-1, 9 by submission, 4 decision. So could very well be one where we get some back and forth action on the ground. I think I'm going to roll with Kasumov. He's only got 2 fights in Bellator. Both those were by decision, but still has, a better record as far as big names than Clark, even though all of Clark's fights were in Bellator. I think he fought some stiffer competition in Kasumov. Talib versus Ruiz. The Swede versus Spanish. 12-1, 12-3. Both these guys have experience in different areas of the PFL. That one's going to be tough to go. I'm going to have to go with Talib, though. I think he's a dark horse. I think he's got that MENA experience, PFL MENA. He was a champion last year, so that could factor in a lot when you get into a battle like this. Middleweight. Impa Kasanganay versus Fabian Edwards at 185 off the bat. Are you kidding me? This is going to be a striking battle for sure. Both these guys should have been later in the round. Kasanganay dropping down. Also dropping down. Silveira versus Shipman. Silveira's 13-4, lost 3 of his last 4. Shipman 17-4. He's fought Edwards. He's got some great battles in Bellator, 9 by KO. I think I'm going to roll Shipman, even though Silveira will be the bigger fighter. Sai versus Rasta. That should be a great battle, as will Jeffrey versus Ramazanov, who might be one of the dark horses, might be one of the guys to watch in this, and who come out in the end the way the brackets have shook out.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of thoughts.
18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The Gators' resume is excellent. We know how hard it is to win on the road in college. They've won at Auburn and at Bama.
Michigan State is 17-5 in quad one, quad twos. Are they a 1 seed? I think not. They may make claim if they make a run and there's craziness in the SEC.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Cleffa Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number 1 seed.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. We continue to talk about the bracket reveal that we've had for the PFL with these tournaments that we're going to have this year starting in April. We've been talking over the last couple of weeks about who's going to be involved in the tournaments. Now we're finally seeing who the matchups are. Some interesting matchups, some different ways that they have done this year. We'll talk about that now with our man Ian Parker, man who knows MMA best, and we love having him on the show all the time. Ian, thanks so much for your time again. We are starting to find out now who we're going to get to see fight in a couple of weeks here. Is less than a month away from the start of these tournaments. Beginning of April, we're going to see it all start to break down in Orlando. Let's break down. To me, there were some interesting matchups here because when usually you get a tournament format, obviously you could just pick them out of a hat. You can try to figure out a different way to do it. But a lot of times when these guys are going to try to match up their biggest stars at the end, whether it's the NCAA tournament or any tournament, you don't want to have your big names drop out in the beginning. But there's some guys that we were looking at in these different divisions saying, okay, depending on where they are, I think they might be a favorites. And some of them got matched up in the first round. So let's touch on some of these, and then we'll get into some of the other matchups with you in a little bit. But first up in the welterweight, that's going to start off first. April 3rd, that's the first card for them. Jason Jackson and Koreshkov, two of the more veterans in this division. Two guys that have a lot of experience standing and trading. Going to be probably one of the more exciting fights this division. Matched up in the first round. What do you think of this one?
I think, this is a good opportunity for Jason Jackson to kind of get his name back out there. Winning the title against Amosov was big for him. Kind of showed everyone that regardless of organization, he is the real deal. And guys at Killcliff always talk about him, saying he is really a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's fighting someone in Koreshkov who, very dangerous on the feet, but once you put him on his back, he kind of comes non-existent. I think you got two names from Bellator that will probably be the main event on the card. So if people are into that, that's a reason to tune in and watch. And I think the winner of that bracket or that matchup is probably the favorite to win that whole thing.
Yeah, and there's another matchup in that one as well that is kind of interesting. The other, if you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, these probably guys would have been in that top 4 as well, as along with those two guys that we just mentioned. That's Logan Sterling and Magomed Umalatov. Another, matchup of guys who like to trade. This one could be very interesting. This could be, a quick fight if one of these guys lands, a big shot early on. Both of them have a lot of experience. One a lot of experience in Bellator, one a lot of experience in the PFL. So it's kind of like a, league versus league matchup here to start this tournament.
Yeah, you know what? Umalatov, I think he kind of ran into a really bad matchup in Musayev in that last one. This is a guy who's actually known for his wrestling, but has fell in love with knocking people out, and he's had success doing it. Against Musayev, he couldn't take him down. He couldn't land. So now he's fighting someone, Logan Storley, who, in my opinion, is a very one-dimensional fighter. He does not have great striking. He's a good wrestler. He keeps coming forward, good on top. But if he can't get Umalatov down, he's going to get I think he gets absolutely smoked. So I think for Umalatov, this is a really good opportunity, a good matchup for him. Keep the fight on the feet. And I think he is someone that, if he gets past Logan Storley, you're going to see him in the finals.
Let's move over to bantamweight right now. The next week, April 11th, we get to see these guys start to take each other on and move on and see who is going to develop in this bracket. Again, two of the bigger names probably that you have in this one. There's a lot of guys that are going to build some good names, some undefeated fighters that maybe a lot of people haven't seen a lot of yet, or some great records in general. But the one that's going to be the headline fight, I think, is Magomedov versus Higo in the first round. The Brazilian, the Russian. Again, two guys with a lot of experience, two guys with a lot of win. Although Magomedov has struggled in his last few fights there at Bellator, but still two of the bigger names in this division right off the bat against each other.
Well, actually, Magomedov lost by split to Patchy Mix. I thought he won that fight. Most people thought he won that fight. I think he kind of got screwed there on the cards. And I think this is his tournament to win here. I think Higo is someone that's good at jiu-jitsu, but, Magomedov is just excellent everywhere, can push a menacing pace. And when Higo has gotten to this position, fighting this level of talent, that's where he struggled. So I think Magomedov is the clear favorite for this division. I do think there's some other guys in there that are dark horses. And this division, I think, has the most depth on planet Earth right now. And I think for the PFL, they need to really execute here and lean into these guys.
Yeah, there are some guys with some great records in that one. You have Kamidov at 16-0, Hadley 11-4, Clark undefeated from Ireland at 10-0, 16-1 for Kasumov, 12-1 for Talib. So like you said, a lot of guys who, have built up their records, built up their names, and maybe, smaller ends of these promotions, or even, smaller parts of other leagues over in Europe and overseas that are now going to come in. Or who are some of the guys that you're maybe most excited about in that division to, make a run and get to the end here?
I think Ali Talib is going to be the one to keep an eye on here. Winning PFL Mania, that's how you build prospects into stars, into well-known, winning that over there and doing it with knockout power in this division. He could just change the tone of the fight with one punch. And he has, in my opinion, the path of least resistance here in regards to a level of opponent. As much as I like Clark, I think he's a very good prospect. If that fight stays on the feet, Talib can knock almost anyone out in this weight class. So I think he is someone to keep an eye on. He may play dark horse, he may play spoiler, but I would like to see his success here coming from PFL Mania.
Yeah, fighting against Ruiz there in the first round, the Spaniard. So we get an all-European battle in that one. Now let's move on to the middleweights. April 18th, we will get them. And, this is when I was looking at the brackets. This is the one that first probably caught my eye. It was one of the higher on the, as far as the brackets. So obviously he's one of the first ones you see. But, two guys that wealth of experience, title experience, fought for belts. And again, matched up right away. You were expecting when you're looking at this roster to see these guys in maybe the finals. But we have Kasanganay dropping down from light heavyweight to this division, going against Edwards. These two guys are going to swing. These guys are going to try to take each other out. It's going to be exciting to watch these guys match up early in this one, set the tone.
Yeah, look, this is really Impa's natural weight class. We saw him do it at the UFC, but when he came to the PFL, we didn't have an 85. So he was on the smaller side of 205. So I think him coming here is actually going to be great for him. I got to be honest, I think Fabian Edwards is a little bit has been exposed, right? I think he's gotten better with his career, but I think he's really outmatched. I think Impa beats him everywhere that fight goes. I do like some other names here, though. Look, Dalton Ross is going to be a lot of fun. Shipman's fun. Silveira also going to his natural weight class. You got Aaron Jeffrey, who was the #1 contender, almost to fight for the Bellator belt, had he not jumped into this tournament. So this division, I think, is going to be the surprise one that will be a lot of fun to watch this season.
Yeah, there should be some great battles there. We're looking forward to that. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue talking to Ian Parker. We'll get some of the opinions on some of the other brackets, who guys he likes, matchups he's looking forward to, all those things that are going to be going on for the PFL. Starting in just a couple weeks. We've been waiting for the rosters. We got them. Now we finally get the matchups. And looking forward to seeing these guys actually start to do battle here for the PFL in the 2025 tournament season.
Also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Grant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number one seed.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, second overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. We continue to talk to Ian Parker and get his opinion on these brackets for the PFL that have now been announced, and the fights are going to get underway in just a few weeks down in Florida. Ian, we got your opinion on some of the dark horses in some of these other divisions, but we kind of just talked about the main two fights that we were looking at on this show in the welterweight. Who are some of the guys you were looking for maybe in the other two fights there to possibly come out of that division, and the Bashar Kikuri fight and the Burkamov versus Zendel? Any of those guys you think could be ones to get a couple sneaky wins and make a name for themselves?
Brzakimov, maybe. You know, this is someone that kind of ran into that Lorenz Larkin knockout. Prior to that, was a pretty solid prospect. So there may be still room for him to grow there. I think he'd be the one out of the names you mentioned that would have a chance to be a little bit of a sneaky play moving on to the next round.
All right, let's move over now and check out some of these other brackets, get some of the fights that you like the best, or some of the people you're looking out for to win some of these divisions. I mean, when we're talking about experience, we're talking about kind of stacked matchups. The women's 125 division right there had a bunch of those. Taila Santos versus Velasquez right out of the gates. Two longtime vets. And also in that side of the bracket, you also have Wantabi and Jenna Bishop. A lot of experience in the top half of that 125 bracket for the women.
I think the dark horse there is going to be Watanabe, and we saw against Liz Carmouche, she had that fight won until 8 seconds left where she got caught in an armbar. You know, I don't think anyone there physicality-wise can grapple with her in a dominant space. So if she gets her arms around you, you're in a lot of trouble. And then outside of that, look, for Taila Santos, we know she has all the skills to be a champ. She has all the skills to win this whole thing. Again, Juliana Velasquez is dangerous because she's got nothing to lose. But if Taila comes in top Taila Santos form, she wins it. But I think Watanabe is also a dark horse there, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, she is definitely dangerous for sure. That should be a great division to watch throughout. I think every one of those fights can be very exciting, even just in the first round. In some of these other divisions, the heavyweights, the big boys, it seems to be Russia versus everybody else in this one. You got some, Tim Johnson, we just saw fight Nemkov, but I mean, if you're looking at, even before the matchups, the guys that you were the dangerous were Popov, Moldanovsky, Romanov. We're getting a lot of the Ovs here ready to do battle for Russia in the heavyweight division. Is there anybody that could upset them? Can Vasyl pull, one last run out of his trunks here, or is this going to be Russia's to win?
Yeah. I don't think Liton Vasyl has got that trick, as you say, to pull out anymore. I just think there's some other guys that are talented. I think Alexander Romanov, if his gas tank can hold up and he could dictate the narrative of a fight, he could win this whole thing between size, wrestling, power, skills. mean, listen, this is a guy who left the UFC as a free agent, signed with the PFL. He didn't get released. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's got very good durability. I think Moldavsky is someone that will probably be the favorite to win. If he wasn't injured last year, that was the case. But Romanov, in my opinion, between size, skill, if that gas tank holds up and he comes in shape, I think he gets it done.
That's always one of the biggest concerns with the big boys. They can swing, but can they last? We'll see how that one goes. Let's look at the lightweight. You got some names we know, obviously Primus, Clay Colliard, Mark Diakisi, Bernal. There's a bunch of names, here and there sprinkled throughout. Who do you like in this bracket? Who do you think can move on and get that belt?
I think this is Gaji Rabanov's to repeat right here. You're looking at some of these matchups. I think everyone here is very talented fighters, and not having to now have that urgency to get finishes for points, it changes the game for someone like Brent Primus, someone like Mads Burnell, what we saw him do to Clay Collard. Listen, Clay Collard's everyone's fan. He's a fan favorite. He's got to keep the fight standing in order to win. He gets too comfortable on his back. But Gaji Rabanov, in my opinion, is the most complete fighter in this division. We saw last season how he won by knockout twice. He's a grappler, great cardio, great durability. Unless someone pulls off a major upset, I don't see him not winning this whole thing again this year.
And then last but not least, we have the 145ers. A lot of great names here. You got Braga Landu right out of the gates. You got Pinedo Boric. And you have Nathan Kelly kind of on the other end of that bracket, who had a lot of bluster but didn't have the performance that we hoped he would have in January in the Ireland-Dagestan card. Who are you looking forward to watching and maybe seeing that they can take this title at 145 and win this tournament?
Look, in my opinion, all eyes are going to be on Jesus Pinedo, number one, to make weight. And if he's able to conquer that, can he do what he did last, 2 seasons ago? Once he won it, he was a huge talk of the town. Great knockout power. Kind of came out of left field and showed us that he's never out of a fight. We haven't seen him since. So if he could make weight, my eyes are on him versus Adam Boric's fight, because in my opinion, the winner of that one will get the chance to get to the finals.
Nobody better breaking down a PFL matchup and MMA in general than our man Ian Parker. We thank him so much for his time. Ian, can't wait to see these fights start to kick off in a couple weeks. Looking forward to talking to you again soon as these tournaments get underway.
Likewise, my man.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. It's great the action that we're going to have coming from the BKFC in the coming weeks, but let's look back at some of the great fights we have seen over the last few weeks. One of those guys putting on yet another great performance was, of course, Justyn Martinez. Another great first-round knockout for him, his second in back-to-back fights. Justyn, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on with us. You had a rough start to the BKFC career. It wasn't going well for you. Now you got these two fights in a row. Two great performances. What's been the biggest difference for you, do you think, between your early fights with the BKFC and what you've done with them in the last two?
Man, I went, about 5 MMA fights coming from a wrestling background. So me and Coach Bittler were talking last week, 7, 8 pro fights now. And a lot of these guys, especially the first few guys I were fighting, had Chancey was ranked number 3. Ridge was ranked number 2. They both had, we'll say, a bit of pro experience. And then Lewis, I felt like Lewis was more on my level. And look what happened to him. Fought Tatsuki in Japan. He was their number 1 guy. I really just think I had to figure out this boxing thing coming from this wrestling background, and feel like between working with Nico's dad Lewis and Rickles and Bittler over here, we're finally starting to put some together.
Yeah, it's always easier when you're in MMA. You get that wrestling background. You can't rely on just take the guy down and not take the damage. It's a lot more difficult to make that jump to just swinging fists like you have done, and you're starting to turn the corner here and put on some great performances. Great win for you over Zay Garcia, the first round TKO out there in Albuquerque. But this one wasn't easy for you from the get-go. When you see a minute 40 win, you're like, all right, this guy just made quick work of his opponent. He had some good shots. Either the left was landing early a couple times that kind of backed you up a second. What was going through your mind early in that fight? As you were the one coming forward, but he started to get that left a little bit. What was going through your head to keep you focused and keep you locked in?
No disrespect to Zay. Maybe it's just because I'm the little guy in the gym as it is, but Kayla said it. He hit me with that first left, and it just busted my lip a little bit. And I was like, well, we can sit here and trade all day. He wasn't cracking like that. Prince wasn't cracking like that. And he caught me with a left a time or two, but I wasn't too worried about it, honestly. He wasn't hitting as hard as some of these other dudes do.
Well, it's great when you have a chin like that. You can take a few shots to get what you need to get. You started to really turn the fight around, I thought, especially for you. In about 50 seconds in, I think it was, where you caught him in that exchange. A couple shots, you landed there. You were swinging before that, didn't exactly land clean. Then you got a couple good ones there that started cutting him open. Did you know once that you saw the blood, do you think something changed in him once you started to land and really kind of register with him that, oh, this is going to be a fight and I might be in trouble now?
Yeah, I think after that first little exchange by the ropes, one of the guys sent me a pretty cool picture of it where he's hanging out of the circle. I don't know. I feel like after I ate a left or two and we got in an exchange, you kind of saw him realize he's not fighting Prince. We all saw what kind of guy he is.
Yeah, that definitely changed his demeanor. Definitely seemed to give him a second thought of, throwing those big shots and leaving himself open to what you could do. And then, of course, it continued. You kept coming forward, and then you got the finish. You got the big exchange that dropped him. Did you know when he went down and he started getting back up? He didn't look, obviously, on point. Sometimes the ref will let it go and let the guy try to fight out of it a little bit. But, obviously the ref in that fight doing a good job kind of walking him, making sure he wasn't, just trying to go on and being off balance and out of sorts and stopping the fight. When he got up, did you know that it wasn't going to continue because he wasn't, on point and staring you down and kind of was off kilter a little bit?
Like you said, damn good ref. And as soon as he got up, he had drunk legs, and I don't think you can hear it watching it, but I'm like, he's walking like he's drunk. Come on, ref. I was definitely saying some stuff, but yeah, that ref's a damn good one. And after that first step or two, you knew he was.
Well, that was a great victory for you. And as you said, 2 in a row now. After rough start, you got 2 quick knockouts. What's the focus for you now? How are you feeling after the fight? You know, a little bit over 2 weeks after. Were there any injuries, any banged up things you got to let heal, or are you right back in the gym, ready to go as soon as they pick up that phone and dial you up?
We did Disney on Ice and all that fun stuff with the little one. Now, last night I got 5.5 miles in, or right back to it. Ideally, get on this Omaha card. Fingers crossed. Nate Shook, send it. Let's go. Yeah, we're right back to it. No cuts, no hands feel good. Let's get it.
That'd be great if we could get you right back in there quick. Keep up that 2025. I mean, you were, 2 fights in less than 3 months, but not that long, not much damage, so you might as well get back in there while you can. I'm sure, obviously training takes its toll, but, you got to make that money. What are you looking forward to? Is there anybody that you have in mind? Anybody that in this division, do you need take back some of those red marks off your ledger? Want to take some of those guys out? Is there anybody in the top 5 or top 10 that's been running their mouth a little too much? What are you looking forward to if it's your choice on who you fight next?
I mean, if it's my choice, shoot, everyone knows I want Chancey back. Everyone knows I'll take Ridge back. Everyone knows Austin Lewis is always running his mouth. I mean, but at the end of the day, if it's my choice, let me shut Lewis up for once and get that one back, or freaking let me get that pro debut back with Chance. I mean, he went from fighting Nico to fighting a dude with 5 MMA fights when he was ranked number 3, and I don't think I'm the only one saying that was one of the more exciting first rounds we've seen. Yeah, I want Chancey back bad. We'll go ahead and take that 5 spot right from him. He's not going to double leg me and pick me up and slam me or nothing like that.
Well, those would be great. Hopefully we can make some of those matchups happen. But, you talked, before we let you go, you talked about hitting Disney on Ice. And, if anybody that follows you on social media, they can see, how much your daughter means to you, how important it is for you to be a girl dad. What's that been like for you to have that in life? Obviously, probably going through a lot of, the testosterone days, your wrestling career and, being a fighter and now having to make that adjustment of, be a little more gentle when you get home now, being the girl dad and taking her and dressing her up and things like that.
Oh, I love it. We did freaking Disney on Ice Friday, daddy-daughter dance Sunday. It's definitely a change of pace. From jumping out of airplanes to having a little girl to now we're fist fighting being a girl dad. But the flexibility, the promotion, and everything else is given me. I have 50-50, so I could not be happier about the whole situation of it. When I got her, it's nothing but her time, and when I don't, it's nothing but getting ready to fight whoever they want to send me. So, yeah, I can't complain, and shoot, we'll see what the future brings. But, yeah, being a girl dad is hands down a highlight of my life.
Well, great performance by you, Justyn. Thanks so much for joining us. Great 2025 so far. Hopefully we can keep it going again soon. As you said, we got that Omaha card, April 18th. Maybe we get you back on there. Or they're announcing cards by the week, it seems like. So plenty more. The Clearwater after that in the U.S. There's plenty of opportunities to get Justyn Martinez back in the mix and see another quick first-round knockout if we can. Thanks so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you back in the sports circle soon.
And then, sorry, but the brigade I was stationed with is out of Vicenza, Italy, so my passport's still good. If they want to get some Sky Soldiers in that freaking Venice stadium, we can just have that place loud. Send that contract.
Let's go. That'd be great. Justyn, thanks so much for joining us and looking forward to your next fight.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to play a little game of true or false. Fantasy or reality is what we used to call it. But instead, we're going to play a little game of buy or sell. Rafael Devers had a press conference and basically said, I ain't moving off third base. I'm a third baseman. I won't play DH. I won't play anywhere else. Alex Bregman was just signed, so how's this going to work out? Buy or sell, George? Devers will start more games at third than Bregman this season. Is that a buy or sell?
Yeah, Devers is a horrific third baseman. All right, he's bad. I think he ranks dead last in the league here. I think Cora is going to talk to Devers. Apparently, they are close. He goes, listen, you got to move, buddy. I'm sorry. You got to move. We're a better team with Bregman at third.
I think he's dug in here, man. I don't know. I know that there was a report a few days ago that they were talking about it and, sort of working things out, but I think in the end, cooler heads will prevail, but I don't know when that's going to be. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to say that Devers starts like 90 games at third base this season. And I think that'll probably be the compromise here. I think that Bregman will start some, Devers will start some. Bregman's still a Gold Glove third baseman at this stage of his career. It doesn't really add up. The other thing that happened is over the course of Big Papi's career, he moved off first base, he went to DH, and Big Papi was Devers, right? I mean, pretty similar in stature there. But Devers just seems to be really dug in on this. I think if it was going to happen, George, we would know by now. And it hasn't. We just heard that it may. So I am going to buy. I don't think Devers plays 150 at third base or even 140 or anything like that. But I do think he plays more than Bregman at third. I think that they have a compromise where they play both.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Now we go and talk to the champ of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Arnold Jimenez, who's, of course, holding that bantamweight title. Won in his first fight, just defended it back in December. Going to be doing it again coming up in a few weeks here. Defended it against Keenan Lewis back at LXF 21. Arnold, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Let me take you back to that fight that we just watched back in 2024 before we move on to your title defense here. Your fight against Lewis, it seemed like a lot of it was almost... maybe experience played a big part in it, not just your skill, but I mean, the way you kind of tracked him down, the way you were stalking him, the way he tried to jump, take your back in that first round, you just shook him right off. He didn't get those hooks in right. Then you came out a little wild in the second, knowing he was in trouble, and you were able to finish him. How much do you think, your experience as a 9-year pro now, a guy who's 10-3, helped you to defend this title and give you a big advantage against Lewis?
No, for sure, man. I feel like like a lot of these guys are just out here like rushing things, and that's where they make a lot of the mistakes, instead of holding positions and, just getting excited. So I know for sure, I'm a veteran, man. I've been training with all the best guys in the world for a long time. And I definitely know I got the edge on a lot of these guys.
Yeah, it definitely worked out. You looked great, of course, in that title defense. Was that the game plan all along? Just kind of stalk him and let him make the mistakes and lead you right into where you needed to be. You knew that obviously with your experience advantage, with your calm, your poise that you developed over these years of your career, that was going to play out that way.
Yes, man. I just try to put that pressure on them. Like maybe I won't be throwing punches pressure, but I'll stay on their face. I'll be present and. I'll force them to throw shots when they don't want to throw, and I'll force them to shoot when they don't want to shoot, Yeah,
you did that well. It worked out to perfection, and a great victory for you. And then, of course, you almost had another fight in the cage afterwards. You had Ethan Ewing get in there in your face. We thought that was going to be the next fight we were going to see, but obviously that's not how things shook out here. But, from your perspective, obviously we see the video there, but we're not hearing exactly what's being said, what's going down. So, what happened in the cage between you guys? That started the beef and got some bad blood going, that Merriman had to step in there and make sure we didn't get 2 fights for the price of 1.
No, honestly, they had caught me off guard. I had just won my fight. I was just doing an interview, and then this guy got inside the cage. I didn't even know who he was. I've never even heard of him or seen him. And he just got in my face and started talking like, oh, I want to fight you. I want that belt. And I'm like, I gave him the belt. That you can have the belt, Like, I'm after bigger things,
Well, that is not the fight we're going to see, though. Did Lights Out try to make that happen? What was going on behind the scenes of why didn't we see that battle match up next? Why didn't we see the bad blood play out?
I'm not too sure, man. They sent me names to who, like, I'll fight whoever, like I'm champion. I don't get to choose who's fighting next, so whoever they put in line, I'm ready.
Well,
so
you will be doing that now.
That has to go with the matchmakers over there. Like, I don't know what they got going on.
Well, what they got going on now is you versus Ramos for this title. We're going to see that March 22nd out there in California. What do you know about Ramos? What can you tell us? What have you been studying on the tapes as you prepare to defend your title once again?
Yeah, man, I don't really study. I have my coaches do that, my pad holder and my coach, Eddie Lopez. He's very good on that. He lets me know what I needed, what I need to see, what I need to worry about. I know he comes from a good camp with Nate Diaz and them, so I know he's a gritty fighter. I know he's game. I know he's gonna come and bring the fight. So those are the type of guys I want to fight.
We're looking forward to seeing that fight. It should be a great card that we could all check out. Lights Out always puts on some awesome action, and obviously a big thing for Sean Merriman isn't just obviously he's growing his promotion. He's trying to grow you guys as well, and not just to lock you in and keep you. He's talked many times about how he wants to help his fighters continue to grow, continue to move on eventually. So what's that been like for you? Obviously 10-3 now, a longtime veteran. You've been on this for almost a decade now. Have you gotten calls for some of these other organizations to try to bring you in there and get you on some of these cards? What's it been like behind the scenes for you as you continue to do your thing with Lights Out, but of course have your eye on the future as well?
Yeah, man, I think Sean Merriman is actually doing a really good job right now. He actually picked up all the workers from Bellator. So they got like all the matchmakers, even all the production team, all the camera guys. They all work for Bellator. So he's doing a good job bringing in. He has the right idea going on, and I like, man. Lights Out has been treating me good. I got no complaints with them, and they're actually helping me to get pushed over to the next level, which is the UFC, and hopefully after this fight, it's the UFC, man. I'm ready. I feel like I want to test myself with the best guys in the world, and that's in the UFC. So that's my goal.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing this fight. We're looking forward to seeing the future. What do you think the biggest difference from you is in your career at this point? Like, obviously, we saw, as you said, we saw some great poise and some high fight IQ. The way you handled that last fight against Lewis, is that something you've always had? Is that something you feel like you developed as the years have gone on? Were you one of these guys that rushing a little bit too much early on, trying to get the knockout, or has this always been the way your fight style has been, and it's just something that you've honed and crafted even more so as the years have gone on?
No, yeah, man. I've always wanted to get out there and take my time and be. I want to get to the UFC, and I'm already experienced. I'm like, there's nothing you could do to me that I haven't seen, haven't felt, or So I've put in the time in my fights. I have a lot of cage time in there, and I was never rushing finishes or So, but now that's what the UFC wants, finishes. So now, yeah, I do look for finishes now, and you got to be exciting, and I feel like I have a very exciting style, but now with more finishes for sure, the UFC won't be able to deny me.
Well, let's hopefully we get another one here. Arnold Jimenez, the bantamweight champ of Lights Out Extreme Fighting against Ramos, defending his title once again, March 22nd. Thanks so much, Arnold, for joining us. We're looking forward to another great fight from you and seeing what the future holds for you in your MMA career.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys reaching out, man.
We're going to play a little game of true or false, fantasy or reality is what we used to call it. But instead, we're going to play a little game of buy or sell. Rafael Devers had a press conference and basically said, I ain't moving off third base. I'm a third baseman. I won't play DH. I won't play anywhere else. Alex Bregman was just signed, so how's this going to work out? Buy or sell, George? Devers will start more games at third than Bregman this season. Is that a buy or sell?
Yeah, Devers is a horrific third baseman. All right, he's bad. I think he ranks dead last in the league here. I think Coro is going to talk to Devers. Apparently, they are closing. Listen, you got to move, buddy. I'm sorry. You got to move. We're a better team with Bregman at third.
I think he's dug in here, man. I don't know. I know that there was a report a few days ago that they were talking about it and, sort of working things out, but I think in the end, cooler heads will prevail, but I don't know when that's going to be. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to say that Devers starts like 90 games at third base this season. And I think that'll probably be the compromise here. I think that Bregman will start some, Devers will start some. Bregman's still a Gold Glove third baseman at this stage of his career. It doesn't really add up. The other thing that happened is over the course of Big Papi's career, he moved off first base, he went to DH, and Big Papi was Devers, right? I mean, pretty similar in stature there. But Devers just seems to be really dug in on this. I think if it was going to happen, George, we would know by now. And it hasn't. We just heard that it may. So I am going to buy. I don't think Devers plays 150 at third base or even 140 or anything like that. But I do think he plays more than Bregman at third. I think that they have a compromise when they play both.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid as we wrap up another week of great combat sports talk. Thank you so much to our guests this week, BKFC flyweight Justyn Martinez, PFL analyst Ian Parker, and lights out bantamweight champ Arnold Jimenez. All great stuff talking to them and finding out some things going on in their minds and getting some great picks from Ian on how these brackets shook out with the PFL. Looking forward to talking to them all more in the future. But let's get into some of the other news going around in combat sports. We have some MMA, some boxing. Let's first hit it off with MMA and talk about the UFC 313. They had the pay-per-view last week, and we have a new champion in the light heavyweight division. Ankalaev gets the upset win over Pereira. Very interesting, maybe a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but definitely not the most exciting fight. A lot of grinding against the cage, a lot of, just trying to wear down the champ. A lot of people felt that Ankalaev maybe didn't do anything too exciting to take the title, but the judges gave it to him 46-49, 48-47, 48-47. He wins on all three. And, a lot of people are questioning what's going on with Pereira because he did not look like the same fighter in that one. When you look at the breakdown of the strikes, when do you ever see kind of Pereira get outstruck almost 2-1? It was 127-97. Another 30 strikes by a third. He gets outstruck by a guy in Ankalaev who's not known as, a huge bomb thrower. No, that's not usually what you see, especially when you see most of Pereira's shots were to the legs. 48 of his 97 shots by the numbers to the legs. That's not a big, knockout fight and not dominating, pick your opponent apart performance by him. I saw a great thought maybe by Aljo Sterling, who said that, maybe it's a situation of he needs to take a break. The guy had 3 title defenses, set a record in less than 180 days. He beat the record that was set by Ronda Rousey for, 3 title defenses. The difference in that is that Rousey took people down, did arm bars. She didn't take a lot of damage in a lot of those fights. Pereira is standing and trading with a lot of those guys. It is not, just an easy, wrestling, avoid shots, avoid damage fights. He's taking shots. He's doing a lot of sparring, pretty much always being in camp and making sure he's on weight. So all that wears on a guy, drains on him. I know there's been a lot of talk about having him jump up to heavyweight to fight John Jones instead of Jones fighting Aspinall, which I think is ridiculous. I think Sterling is right. Maybe take some time before his next fight. First of all, you had Dana White say that they probably get a rematch of this one. So that would slow that down as it is. And, if you ever do go up to heavyweight, maybe do not exactly as long as Jones took, but as smart as he did and take your time building that up because this is a guy who probably needs some rest after having a lot of fights because he did not look like his normal dominating, dangerous self in the fight against Ankalaev. But congrats to the new champion at light heavyweight. You also had Gachi have a great fight against Fiziev. Fiziev taking that fight on short notice. Just a battle between these two guys. Lots of strikes, a lot of shots to all different areas. Significant strikes, 72-68. It was a close fight. It goes by 29-28, all three judges to Gachi. But you know how tough a fight it is where he basically says, yeah, I never want to fight this guy again unless it's for a title. That shows you not just how tough that fight was, but also the growth of Justyn Gaethje for over the years. This is a guy who just fighting a phone booth, try to take your head off or you take his off, has developed into more of a safe striker and a smart striker, and now being a smart fighter as well, saying, I don't want to take on a dude that tough unless I absolutely have to. And you also had Lemos with a win over Lucindo, and a very boring fight that I think they even ended early, technically, when you're watching the clock. But before we get out of it, you got to give Ruffy some great credit. His fight against Green, nasty knockout, spinning heel hook. You don't see many heel hook kick. You don't see many of those. Look at that. Oof. I haven't seen many of that. The last one I can remember was back on The Ultimate Fighter, where you had Uriah Hall throw that kind of kick and get the finish. Awesome, crazy, fun to watch. Great knockout for him. Before we get out of here, though, we got some great news in boxing as well. First of all, UFC in boxing getting involved. TKO, UFC, hooking up with Saudi Arabia to start a boxing league. And from the sound of it, Dana White says they're going to run it just like the UFC. They're not going to deal with these other organizations and their belts and all this stuff. They're going to make their own belt and have their fighters fight for it. And seems like try to kind of unify and maybe monopolize boxing like they have done with the world of MMA. You also have another rematch, or a trilogy in this case, being announced with Taylor Serrano 3. They're going to headline an all-women's card at Madison Square Garden. Of course, some people thought Serrano won the first fight, but Taylor got the decision. A lot of people thought Serrano definitely won the second fight, that fight in Dallas on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight card, but Taylor got the decision. So even though Taylor got 2 wins in 2 fights, they're still going to do it a third time because people say, come on, you got to give Serrano another chance. And also, before we get out of here, we talked about that Davis-Roach fight last week. New York Athletic Commission going to hold it up. Bad decision by them. I know they said they could have made it up in the 3 rounds after, but that swung the cards. It changed the fight, and it should have been called the other way. Bad news for Roach.
It's made every match so much more enjoyable to watch because you don't get the stinkers, right?
Right. It goes back to these guys being smart. They figured out that if I've got the hammer in my back pocket and I don't relinquish it, we can just play them straight up and win. They figured that out. So it's like, all right, now credit to the people at TGL. Like, no, we need to fix this because the hammer can change the match. And since we fixed it, you're not out of it.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Off of the combine this weekend, there's been lots of anonymous sources and position coaches and all these things that sat down in interviews with him. A lot of teams allegedly don't see him as a first-round pick.
Their big mouth that thinks they can do it either. They're embarrassing themselves. They all think they're so smart, everybody in this business. You're all a bunch of drifts. Honestly, you don't know who's going